yesterday showed you the timeline which we talked about today again, correct? He showed you
Yes.
that you took it out of the bag and you discussed that there were 3 photocopies, right?
Yes.
One of them appeared to be one side of the document that was an original with the purple line on it that Mr. Dulos wrote.
Yes.
The other one, she told you, was in the possession of Mr. Bowman, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, she had the 2 that we showed, the phone calls and her timeline. She told you that Mr. Bowman had it, right?
Yes.
And we see in that June 6th video that Mr. Bowman says, she gave it to me, and he starts searching through his papers for it, right?
Yes.
You had no reason to doubt that, did you?
No.
She also told you that this was the first time that she had shaved Mr. Dulos's head, correct?
Correct.
But she told you he'd done it before for water skiing, right?
That he had done it before. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
it was for water skiing.
Well, I'm just going to show you Exhibit I, which is Defense Exhibit I. It's already in evidence. I'm going to show you a couple of the images from that. Is the screen on? I'm going to ask you just, do you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
And what's the date from that image, the post?
December 24, 2016.
2016, right?
2016.
And the next one? What's the date for that one?
June 25, 2016.
Okay. The next one? Can you zoom in a bit? Well, before you do, what's the date on that one?
June 18, 2017.
So you'd agree this wasn't the first time you'd ever close cropped his hair, correct? In 2019, that is.
He had short hair previously. I don't know if it was as short as it was when we encountered him on the 31st.
And talking a little bit about things that each time you talk to her, you would try to corroborate that information, correct?
Correct.
And it led to sometimes more questions, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it led to leaving certain issues alone and just talking about other issues, correct?
Yes.
Just going to object, Your Honor, it's vague.
Well, sustained, but it was responded to, so the court is going to allow the response to stand.
Did you look for Instagram or social media posts of Photos Dulos with close cropped hair after Michelle told you that this wasn't the first time that he had done this?
I did not personally, but
Someone did?
someone did.
Okay. So you had no reason to disbelieve her about that, did you? That this wasn't the first time that he had close cropped hair for water skiing?
No.
She also told you that Pavel Gumieni had supposedly was down in New Canaan, correct?
On the 24th? Yes.
On the 24th, right?
Yes.
And told you about him driving back and seeing him with the Tacoma at 80 Mountain Spring Road, right? On the 24th. Not the Tacoma and the Raptor. At 80 Mountain
She
Spring
talked
Road.
about the Raptor.
Well, let's be clear. On
Yeah,
May 24th,
please be clear.
she was at 80 Mountain Spring when Pavel showed up in the Raptor, correct?
That's correct.
The Tacoma was already at 80 Mountain Spring Road at that time, right?
And which interview are we speaking of?
The June 2nd interview.
She did not specify that during the June 2nd interview.
The June 6th interview?
No,
She didn't mention it at June 6th either?
no.
She told you, though, however, that he had come up from New Canaan, right?
She told us he had arrived and that Supposedly, he was coming from New Canaan. She couldn't say that for sure. She was very clear about that.
That she couldn't say for sure, but that would be something you would check, right? To see if it could be confirmed or not, right?
Yes,
And you were not able to confirm that Pavel was in New Canaan that day, were you, at the job site?
Well, I'm going to object, Your Honor, because this is hearsay.
Well,
Again, it's not,
He's specifically asking the question, did you confirm, which means he's offering it for its truth. And so my objection is hearsay.
well, the question is, the court's going to frame the question. Were you able to verify that Pavel was in New Canaan on that date? That's the question. And the answer is either yes or no.
yes,
you were able to verify it
yes,
through video
through video.
on the 24th.
On Friday, May 24th.
So you saw Pavel on a video on May 24th in New Canaan?
My recollection is we saw the Raptor,
At the Sturbridge Hill
61 Sturbridge Hill.
on that date? The 24th, or are you thinking the 22nd or 21st?
No, I'm thinking of Friday, May 24th.
All right. Now, when Mr. McGinnis put Michelle's timeline from May 24th up on the screen, he asked you whether she said anything about dropping off trash or disposing of trash on Albany Avenue, right?
Judge, just so the record's clear, I did not put it up on the screen.
All right. When he showed you the piece of paper that's Exhibit 74, he then asked you about whether she wrote on that document that she had been on Albany Avenue with Fotis Dulos when he was disposing of garbage bags. Do you remember those questions?
Yes,
And your answer was no, correct?
my answer was no, correct.
But when she didn't put on it that she had been to Starbucks, did she?
No, the last entry was 7:10, or 5:10, excuse me.
She didn't put on there that she'd been to Starbucks on the timeline, did she?
Correct,
She stopped at 5:10, right?
correct.
Yeah, remind us, when did the police become aware that Jennifer Dulos was missing?
Which police?
The New Canaan police.
The evening of the 24th of May.
And the information, whether it's true or not, the last time she was known to have communicated was in the morning, isn't that right?
That's correct.
I'm just going to show you from Exhibit K, this is already marked. You obtained, or someone obtained the surveillance cameras from the Starbucks in West Hartford, correct?
Correct,
And that's also right on Route 44.
yes.
It's between, I don't want to put up a map, but it's between the Avon, Deer Cliff Road, and down to Hartford, right? It's in between those points along Route 44, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm going to ask you to look at Exhibit K for a moment here. And do you recognize hold on, other, not working? All right, could you point to where Michelle Troconis is in this screenshot?
This is Michelle Troconis right there.
Okay, and do you know who the person with her is? Can you identify that person?
Appears to be Fotis Dulos.
And I'm going to show you one other screenshot from this video. Do you recognize the people that are in this video as well?
Yes,
And again, I don't know why my pointer's not working, but is this Michelle, is that Michelle holding a sandwich on the left there?
Yes,
Talking to Mr. Dulos?
appears to be yes.
And she had indicated that to you in the interview that she had bought a sandwich at Starbucks, right?
Correct,
She
yes.
said it tasted terrible and she threw it away, right?
Yes.
Her timeline didn't mention Pavel taking the motorcycle that night, did it?
No,
It didn't mention her going home after trying to drop off her rugs and learning that the place closed at 5:30, did it?
no,
It didn't mention anything about Photostoulis going jogging that night, did it?
no,
It didn't mention anything about having to pick up her daughter at school after she was in the school play, did it?
correct, it did not.
You knew, she told you that her daughter had been in a play that night, right?
Yes,
In fact, she told you it was the play Chicago, right?
right,
That the students were putting on at Ethel Walker School, right?
correct.
No mention of that, right?
That's correct.
There's no mention of the Farmington police coming to her house around 8:15, 8:30 that night, right?
8:30, yes, correct.
Coming to her house to tell Mr. Dulos that his wife was missing. That's not in there either, is it?
No, it's not.
So this entire timeline wasn't a complete rendition of everything that she had done, was it? On May 24th.
Apparently not.
Just have a moment. I have nothing further.
Redirect, please.
Yes, Judge. Detective Kimball, you were asked on cross-examination specifically as to the defendant's account, whether she had seen Mr. Dulos in the four-group office on May 24th, 2019. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And you and Attorney Schoenhorn had a back and forth about whether or not she had seen him in the office or simply heard him. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to play, Your Honor, if I could.
I'm going to object as to the mischaracterization. I didn't ever use the word heard him. I said that she believed he was there because Mawiney was there, and she had been told that he had a meeting with him. So I object to the characterization.
Well, the court does not recall on cross-examination the question as to whether Michelle Troconis heard Photostoulis. But nevertheless, that does not foreclose the line of question.
You just heard Attorney Schoenhorn's objection, correct?
Yes.
So let me try to reframe the question. You had a back and forth with Attorney Schoenhorn about whether or not the defendant actually said she saw Mr. Dulos in the office or whether or not she just assumed that he was in the office, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so if I can just have a moment, I'll take care of this.
Okay.
I'm going to play, Your Honor, the first interview, Your Honor. Specifically, there's a time clock. If I could just have one moment, actually.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I play the right time. This is the time clock, Your Honor. It's 14:50 and 19 seconds to 14:51 and 6 seconds.
In the kitchen, like I always do, in the table or in the chair. I go up to the office. I was gonna do a coffee, I didn't. I don't remember if I did a coffee, I don't think so. Usually I do coffees every time after dropping me cold with, sometimes with photos, sometimes without photos. I walk, Kent, the lawyer is there.
Okay.
They're talking in the further, have you been in the house, no?
Just explain.
They're in the table down the office
They, Kent and who?
and photos.
Kent and Photos?
I grab my computer.
Detective Kimball, did you have an opportunity to listen to the defendant's words in that particular clip?
Yes.
What did she say about whether or not she had seen Mr. Dulos in the office on May 24th?
She stated she saw there at. She stated she saw Mr. Dulos
And did she indicate where in the office she had seen him?
towards the back of the office with Kent Moen.
She didn't say that she assumed that he was in the office in that clip, did she?
She did not.
Now, I want to play for you another clip. You'll recall that you and Detective Clabby had a series of interactions with the defendant during the interview where you and Detective Clabby overtly suggested and at times indirectly suggested that Mr. Dulos had killed Jennifer Dulos. Do you recall that?
I do.
So I'm going to play for you. This is the time clock, 16:01:53 to 16:02:12.
Jen. Okay. This is a fact. We know this. We need to find Jennifer. Is there anywhere that
Then you look in the house
we're at your house?
and
Listen.
So the beginning of the clip was a little bit cut off, but Detective Clabby indicated to the defendant that Fotis had killed Jennifer, and that was a fact, correct?
I do remember that, yes.
Okay. And the defendant asked you, did you look in the house?
Yes.
Did you find that response odd?
Objection, irrelevant, speculation.
Well, this is the witness's perception of how he perceived the response. Overruled.
Yes, I found it unusual.
Why?
It was a skip, a jump to something that we were making a statement. She was alluding to the house.
And I want to also just direct you back now. You recall the back and forth that you had with Attorney Schoenhorn about whether or not she had assumed that she saw Mr. Dulos in the office or whether or not she had actually said that she saw Mr. Dulos in the office. Now, at this point, the defendant has been told by Detective Clabby that Fotis
I'm going to
Dulos...
object, this is narration, this is not a redirect, and it's not a question.
Well, it's preliminary because the question concerns what the conversation was in the video at the interview. This is setting up the question that's going to be asked, so it's preliminary, overruled.
Detective Clabby had said to the defendant, as we just saw, at around 16:02, I believe, that Fotis had killed Jennifer and that was a fact, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall after that the subject of Fotis Dulos' whereabouts on the morning of May 24th, 2019 came up again?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to play 16:12:46 to 16:13:52.
Tell me with 100% certainty that you saw Fotis in the house on the morning of the 24th.
when I woke up, yes.
At what time?
7:40 the alarm, 7:42, I was in the room.
And for how long of a time did you see him?
6:40.
Okay. And how long of a time did you see him for?
No, just in the shower, and then I left. Down, I get the juice,
So just to go back, at 6:40 is the time you saw photos first in the house, and then you don't see him again until you have lunch? So basically from 6:40 to lunchtime.
No, I'm sorry. I went back to the office.
Okay, what time?
9 o'clock. It's not when I go to
9 o'clock?
No, yes. 8.
You went back to his
Yes.
office and saw him?
He was with Kent sitting at the far end of the office.
And that's at
And
8
that was
o'clock.
like 8:15, 8.
So just to be clear, this particular exchange occurred after Detective Clavier told her that Mr. Dulos killed Jennifer, is that right?
That's correct.
And the defendant once again repeated to you that she had seen Mr.
Objection leading.
What did the
Well-
defendant say to you
Well,
about?
the court has the opportunity to rule. It is leading, but it's not leading to the point of unfair prejudice. It's a reiteration, overruled.
And the defendant once again said to you, not that she assumed Mr. Dulos was in the office, but that she actually saw him in the office, correct?
She stated she saw him in the office, yes.
Detective Kimball, you were asked about whether or not the defendant was speaking to you about her usual day or whether or not she was speaking with you about that day. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
All right. I want to play another clip. And I believe this is the clip, Judge. It's 14:45 and 4 seconds to 14:46 and 53 seconds.
Usually I have the alarm set for 6:40 every day, but not Thursdays because Nicole goes to school on Thursdays. She gets in at 9 instead of 8. So from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and on Fridays, my alarm is always mine and Nicole's alarm is always set at 6:40.
Okay, you live at 4 Jefferson Crossing?
Yes.
Okay, with Fotis and with
And
Nicole?
Nicole.
Okay.
Yes.
And Nicole is 12?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So my normal day, the alarm sounds. Usually I'm in my room, she's in her room. She wakes up, she's very independent. She wakes up, I hear the shower turning on. That day I slept with her because then from Thursday to Friday it was raining. There was thunderstorms.
Okay, sure.
So she called me at 12:59 when she's scared and then have the phone next to my bed.
Right.
She called me. I answered. She said, "I'm scared." And obviously, I mean, when she says that, I hang up and I go. I leave my phone and I go to her room. So I did that. So obviously, I woke up and I was with her in her bed. The alarm sounds. I wake up and I go to our bedroom. I turn off my alarm that is snoozing her. Fotis wakes up too. When I go to the bathroom, I brush my teeth, I get into the shower. I don't wet my head usually because usually I take a fast shower to take Nicole. Fotis jumps into the shower with me.
Detective Kimball, the defendant began talking about what happens during a usual day, but then she specifically directed you to this particular day. Is that right?
That's correct.
Again, Your Honor, I'm going to object, one, to the characterization, the jury has heard it, and two, that this is clearly leading, and it's not preliminary. He's telling the witness how he should perceive this and how they should perceive what was just said.
Well, the difference between a leading question when there's no video of the actual interview and a leading question when there is actual video and audio of the interview is clear. This is a recap of what was already in the video and in evidence. So that's not the same as a leading question when none of this has been heard before. Overruled.
You may answer the question, sir.
Could you re-ask it, please?
The defendant began by talking to you about her usual day, but then specifically directed you to what occurred that day. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Detective, you were asked on cross-examination about various pieces of information that you were able to confirm, that is, information that the defendant gave you. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Was there also information that you were unable to confirm?
Yes.
And was there also information that was contradicted by later investigation?
Yes.
Incidentally, you were asked a series of questions about the defendant's physical condition during this particular interview. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Just for the record, Judge, I'm holding State's Exhibit 74. It consists of 3 documents. I'm referring specifically to the document that begins with a time entry of 6:40 for Mr. Schoenhorn's benefit. Just handing you this document. Detective Kimball, you were asked questions about the defendant's physical condition. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did the defendant ever indicate to you that she hadn't slept before she wrote this document?
No.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. This had nothing, we're talking about the conditions in the interview. I didn't ask anything about when she wrote anything. I didn't ask any question about her condition on May 24th. So this is clearly outside the scope.
Well, the court hears the question this way, and perhaps there needs to be clarification. Was the defendant tired when she wrote the timeline such that she left things out? That's how the court hears the question. Or did you notice if the defendant was tired?
Perhaps, may I just ask another question, Your Honor? Attorney Schoenhorn asked you a series of questions about the defendant's physical condition. We've talked about that, correct?
Correct.
And he asked you whether or not she had eaten. He asked you whether or not she was exhausted, things of that nature, correct?
Yes, correct.
Did the defendant, and she relayed information during the course of this interview, true?
True.
Okay. Did the defendant ever indicate that she was exhausted when she wrote that timeline?
No.
Did the defendant ever indicate that she was dizzy when she wrote that timeline?
No.
Was the defendant under arrest when she wrote that timeline?
No.
Incidentally, you were asked on cross-examination whether or not Starbucks was included in this timeline. Do you recall that?
Yes.
When did the defendant go to Starbucks?
At approximately 8 p.m., 7:58, 8 p.m. on the 24th.
And how long after the defendant was observed on Albany Avenue with Mr. Dulos would that have been?
10 minutes approximately?
So the entire trip to Hartford and Starbucks was not included in this, correct?
That's correct.
From an investigative perspective, did you find that strange?
Yes.
Objection. Irrelevant opinion.
Well, the question was, from an investigator's perspective, did you find that strange? The answer was yes, but if there's no follow-up, the court can draw no conclusion about whether it is relevant.
Why did you find that strange, sir?
Objection.
Grounds.
The same, that's why I object to the first. His opinion on why a particular answer he found strange is speculation. It goes to his lay opinion. It has nothing to do with the case, and essentially, it doesn't matter what he thought about it.
Your Honor, may I
Well-
be heard on that?
Well, the court is able to address the objection. The question, did you find that strange, leads to another question. And that question is, for what reason did you find it strange? And the witness is going to testify that he found it strange because certain things didn't, to use a colloquial phrase, didn't add up. So it's overruled.
Why did you find it strange, sir?
Found it to be strange because it was potentially incriminating information and it was omitted.
Incidentally, you were also asked a series of questions on cross-examination about the defendant using the English language.
Correct.
What language was her timeline written in?
English.
To your knowledge, did any police officers force her to write this in English?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Similarly, you were asked on cross-examination about a document contained within State's Exhibit 74, which included, well, it's titled phone calls. Do you recall that document?
Yes,
What language was that written in?
also in English.
Did the defendant ever tell you that she was malnourished when she wrote this particular document?
No, she did not.
Was the defendant under arrest when she wrote that particular document?
She was not, no.
Just going to return 74 to the clerk. Detective, you were asked a series of questions on cross-examination, I believe it was Friday, although it might have been today as well, about your experience in general with interrogating suspects. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, yes,
And some of the questions that you were asked included whether or not someone who was educated could be nervous, things of that nature. Do you recall that line of questioning?
yes, I do.
Detective, in your experience in questioning suspects, do arrestees and suspects in crimes provide detailed accounts in attempts to show that they're being truthful at times?
Objection, it's vague, it's irrelevant what happens in other cases, and it's, again, going into lay opinion about comparing her to some other random, unknown other suspect.
Well, it wasn't irrelevant on Friday, Judge, when he asked these types of questions. I'd ask the court for a little bit of leeway here.
Well, the questions on Friday were, as the court recalls them, cannot someone who is educated get nervous? And the line of questioning concerned, cannot someone who is essentially well-read get nervous? Now, this line of questioning is questioning about general observations or perceptions by this witness of suspects in crimes and whether they, that is, those suspects can provide detailed information. And the court assumes that was the thrust of the question. Is that correct?
Yes, Judge.
So again, the question is, isn't it true that those who are suspected of crimes who are being interrogated by the police can provide detailed information. So essentially, the court hears the objection, but the thrust of the inquiry is everybody who talks to the police in interrogations doesn't forget details. That's what the thrust of the question is, as the court understands it. So the court's going to allow it. Overruled.
City Attorney, would you mind re-asking the question? Please.
Would Madam Monitor be able to read it back?
Questioning suspects. Should you recall that line of questioning?
Yes, it is.
Detective, in your experience in questioning suspects, do arrestees and suspects in crimes provide detailed accounts in attempts to show that they're being truthful at times? Yeah.
You may answer.
Yes.
You were asked on cross-examination about the fact that you and Detective Clabby occasionally interrupted the defendant. Do you recall those lines of questions?
Yes, I do.
Were there also times during the interview where you allowed the defendant to speak without interruption?
Yes.
And were your attempts at interrupting to provide a particular direction to the interview at times?
Yes, they were.
The defendant indicated that she relies on her phone, or at least her attorney indicated that she relies on her phone, I guess, in recalling certain events. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
But isn't it a fact, sir, that she relayed all of that information to you on June 2nd and June 6th without the benefit of her phone?
Yes.
You were asked questions on cross-examination on Friday about the defendant's activities on May 30th, 2019. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And you were asked whether or not she had to provide DNA, fingerprints, and participate in full-body photographs up at Troop L. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. Just to be clear here, I mean, she wasn't brought up there willy-nilly. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, there was a search warrant that had been authorized by the court, correct?
Objection.
Well, the court has heard the testimony, and the question, she was not brought up there willy-nilly, then begs the next question, there was a search warrant, wasn't there? So if the defense had indicated that she was brought up there willy-nilly, then the questions would be relevant. But the court can recall no instance where the defense has alleged she was brought to Litchfield willy-nilly.
Judge, may we just approach on this one very quickly?
Yes.
Detective, you were shown a second weather report today by Attorney Schoenhorn. Do you recall that?
Yes,
I guess the first weather report that he displayed for the jury had the wrong time. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And I guess these weather websites can be hard to navigate at times. Was that your experience?
Yes, it was.
You were asked on cross-examination on Friday about whether the defendant had been, quote, a little annoyed, quote, with Mr. Dulos for going to Jennifer's house. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
She did not use the words that she was a little annoyed, did she?
She did not know.
What did she say about that?
She said she was angry and she threw the phone down.
Did she also indicate that she accused Mr. Dulos of being disrespectful?
She did, yes.
You were asked on cross-examination whether or not the defendant had offered to dig holes and look for Jennifer. Do you recall those lines of questions?
Yes,
Specifically that she was offering to help find Jennifer's body?
that's what she was claiming, yes.
Now, you had an opportunity, or at least someone in the room did, to ask the defendant what she thought had happened to Jennifer. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
What did the defendant tell investigators about what she had thought happened to Jennifer?
She stated that she thought Jennifer was hiding from her family, hopefully, and that she was still alive.
So she's offering to dig holes even though she believes that Jennifer's still alive?
Objection, argumentative, leading, and mischaracterization.
I'll withdraw,
It's at a
Judge.
different point.
I'll withdraw, Judge. During the first interview, the defendant was confronted by Detective Clabby about the FedEx envelope being thrown down the sewer. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And specifically, do you recall what the defendant said during the first interview about whether or not she had seen Mr. Dulos put something in the sewer?
She said, yes, she saw it and that she was asking him why he was doing it.
Now, directing your attention to the second interview on June 6th, what did the defendant say about whether or not she had seen Mr. Dulos put anything down the sewer?
She denied having seen him put anything into the storm drain.
You were asked on cross-examination about the defendant's claim that the first time she learned about Jennifer's disappearance was when the Farmington Police Department arrived at 4 Jefferson Crossing in the evening of May 24th. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
I'd like to play another clip. If I could just have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to play 1629 in 4 seconds to 1630 in 50 seconds.
Yeah, what was in the bags?
No, why do we have to do this now? And he's like, no, wait. I never finished the story of when the police came.
Tell us, please.
Okay, because after we went to the Starbucks, We went to the house, I threw the sandwich because it was disgusting.
He likes Starbucks, so I'll let you finish up.
Terrible
You're
sandwich.
not offended, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, and when I went up, I'm in the laundry, I see a police car come. So this is like at 8:30.
This is 24th Friday, we're back.
Yes. And I go out, and I was about to go down the stairs, and I'm like, and I see Fotis, and I thought this is a police car down. And he goes, he's like, I know. He walks to the door. I didn't go down because I see police and I panic. I don't know why. I think because I've seen too many terror movies. The police talks there in the door. It doesn't go in, or Fotis doesn't go out. It was like in the door, in the middle of the door. I go to my room. I was in Nicole's room, and I'm like, okay, I want to be here. I go to my room. I went to the bathroom. I changed my.
That's okay, that's your mark, sorry.
And then I go back and like, what happened? And he says, the police just said that Jennifer's missing. I'm like, what?
Detective Kimball, do you recall that exchange with the defendant?
Yes.
Now, where did the defendant tell you her daughter was on May 24th in the evening hours?
The daughter was at a play at Ethel Walker School until 9 p.m.
So at the time that the police arrived, the defendant's daughter was not home, correct?
That's correct.
The defendant indicated to you, though, that when the police arrived at 4 Jefferson Crossing, she, quote, panicked,
That's what she said, yes.
and she indicated that she, quote, panicked because she had seen too many, quote, terror movies?
I believe that's what she said, yes.
Detective, did you find that strange?
Objection. Yeah, this-
Well, at this point, the question is, well, did you find it strange that the defendant said she panicked because perhaps she had seen too many terror movies? Now, the next question is, did you find that strange? And the court assumes that the "that" refers to the fact that the defendant said she panicked because she had seen too many terror movies. Well, at this point, if the court allows the response, then the next question should be, did you find it strange as soon as she said it? So at this point, it seems as if the responses are being, the witness is being goaded into saying something that we didn't see on the video.
Exactly.
So the court is going to sustain the objection.
Did the defendant also indicate during that exchange when referencing the Farmington Police Department arriving that she, quote, didn't want to be there?
Yes.
You were asked on cross-examination about whether or not the defendant told you on June 2nd and June 6th when you interviewed her that Pavel Gumieni's Toyota Tacoma was present at 80 Mountain. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Did she ever tell you that that Tacoma was present at 80 Mountain while she was there during either of those interviews?
Not during the first 2 interviews, no.
She did, however, discuss the Porsche Cayenne with you, correct?
Yes.
What did she say about the Porsche Cayenne?
That it was parked at 585 Deer Cliff and that it remained there, they'd had an accident.
So what vehicles did she discuss relative to their locations on May 24th, 2019 with you during the June 2nd and June 6th interviews?
The Cherokee, which she was driving, the Suburban, the 2015 Suburban owned by Ford Group, the 2014 Raptor, and the Porsche.
You were asked on cross-examination about how many stops Mr. Dulos made in the area of Albany Avenue, specifically how many stops were recorded. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And I believe you were indicated that you reviewed some of that footage. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Specifically, there's footage where the bed of Mr. Dulos's vehicle is visible. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, that's correct.
And can you describe to the jury what's visible in the bed?
I'm going to object to him describing what was in a video and characterizing what's in the video.
Well, that's funny, Judge, because on Friday during cross-examination, Mr. Schoenhorn asked Detective Kimball whether or not it was raining hard, or actually I think the question was describe what you see in the video. So, you know, I think that the defense, quite frankly, needs to be consistent when they're objecting. If they're going to be using certain tools in examination, that's fine, but the state should be afforded the same opportunity when it gets up for redirect examination.
I believe a video showing pouring rain is a little different than having this witness describe what he thinks, his opinion on what he thinks is in the vehicle. So the jury has seen it, they can reach their own conclusion. His opinion is irrelevant and has no bearing on anything that this court has to determine.
Wasn't it his opinion that it was raining hard?
Now,
I'm not asking.
this now is argumentative. So the question the court believes can be asked is whether there were black garbage bags in the back of the pickup. And what happened to those bags according to the video? Or what did you see Fotis Dulos do with the bags in the video?
I don't think that's where he's going. He's asked for his opinion, what he thinks that he did with them.
Well, that's not the question the court heard. Perhaps it should be asked again.
Detective Kimball, you indicated that you had reviewed some surveillance footage. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And at various times in the surveillance footage, was the bed of Mr. Dulos's Raptor visible?
Yes.
And I believe you indicated that Mr. Dulos turned off of Albany Avenue at one point and the bed of his Raptor was visible.
Yes, that's correct.
What did you see inside the bed of the pickup truck in that surveillance footage?
Objection. He's not being asked what he sees Mr. Dulos doing. He's asking for an opinion on what he thinks is in that vehicle.
It's not an opinion.
Well, there is video. There is clear evidence that there are black, large, plastic garbage bags in the bed of the truck. So if the answer goes beyond that, then the jury can determine the credibility of the response. Overruled.
You may answer the question, sir.
As the vehicle turned off Albany Avenue onto Milford Street, traveling southbound, you could see into the bed, and you could see that there were several black plastic garbage bags in the rear of that vehicle.
And after that vehicle turned, did the bed of the pickup truck become visible again in additional surveillance footage?
Yes, it did.
And describe to the jury what it looked like at that point.
There were definitely,
Objection, Your Honor.
Well, overruled.
there were fewer black plastic garbage bags in the bed of the Raptor.
And if I just have a moment with my colleague here. Judge, I have an exhibit I'd like marked. Detective Kimball, you were asked on cross-examination about some screenshots that showed the defendant and Mr. Dulos at Starbucks. Do you recall those questions?
Yes,
The surveillance footage from Starbucks, however, is not a still camera, is it?
that's correct.
In fact, it's a motion camera.
That's correct.
The bottom, there's three things. The bottom one is the whole 3 hours. The top one is clipped to the time. Do you want to look at it?
Your Honor, I think Attorney Schoenhorn just wants to review the exhibit. I don't know if
Yeah.
you want to take
Which-
maybe a quick afternoon break.
Which exhibit is it?
This is State 79, Your Honor.
Do you wish to take the recess now, Attorney Schoenhorn?
Well, I just heard there's more than one thing on there. I just want to see what those other things are. So I may not object, I just need to know what's on there.
Well, the question is, how long will it take you to do that, or should we take the recess now?
I have no objection to taking the recess now. Your
If
Honor.
this is the I don't know if this is the end of the questioning. If it's not, I would suggest that we could take our usual break and I would watch it I'll try to multitask while he's asking other questions. It's up to the court.
You can proceed, Attorney McGinnis. You can proceed.
I think, well, I'm nearing the end, Judge. I don't know if this is going to be the actual last segment of my questions, but I'm prepared to play it now. So,
And Attorney Schoenhorn knows that what you're trying to
I've alerted
show.
him what the exhibit is, yes.
And so what you're saying is you haven't seen it recently yourself, correct?
Well, I just heard there were 3 separate files on there. I would be only aware of 1, maybe 2, but I need to see what is on there. I just got to make sure that it's what I think.
Well, if we can do that in the next 2 minutes, that would be more helpful. In other words, if you can check it out now, that would be more helpful.
I will do that. Your Honor, talking about having the jury in while I'm plugging in my,
Correct.
oh, I'll just state, Your Honor, there appear to be 5 files on this exhibit. Some of them look like hours and hours, it looks like, of Starbucks video. See every customer come in, what they're ordering. That's just my cursory review. So I'm certainly going to object to all of that being played, but if the state wants to put all of that in, that's what's on this exhibit. So unless they're going to play, it's like 9 hours of Starbucks, you know what everybody orders and what people like at Starbucks, I'm going to have to object to this exhibit. If there was a separate one that was just the part that I assume they were interested in, there are a couple of files that seem to be the video from which the screenshots were taken. I'm not going to object, I just object to this disc because of that.
Well, the court understands that Attorney McGinnis was not offering 9 hours worth of Starbucks
I am
video.
not, Judge.
So, do you have the time stamps for the edited pieces, Attorney McGinnis?
Attorney Manning is indicating that she believes it's on the video, but perhaps I can just, if we could just take the afternoon recess, Judge, and I can shore that up and perhaps create a disc that is agreeable to Mr. Schoenhorn.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will take our afternoon recess until 3:30 today. Please do not discuss the case.
All rise. This honorable Superior Court now taking a recess.
That's what we're gonna do. We have
This honorable Superior Court is now open and back in session. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, please be seated. Thank you.
Judge, we just got this copy. I don't know if Attorney Schoenhorn wants to review it in advance.
If it just has the two files that I skimmed through, I don't have any problem with it.
So, Your Honor, my understanding is that there's 3 clips. The first clip is broken into when they walk in and when they leave, and then there's still a third clip. But I think the gravamen of Attorney Schoenhorn's concern with the previous exhibit was that there are people, I guess, there's hours and hours of footage. My understanding from speaking with my colleague is that that has now been reduced to what we'll call the relevant portion of the footage. But if Attorney Schoenhorn wants to review it now, I don't have an objection to that.
Well, I
Attorney
looked
Schoenhorn.
at two. Could you just, what is the third one, so at least I know?
Then it switches to the counter camera, then it goes back to the exit camera. Because it follows their path, so that's why it's divided into 3. It's really only 2 clips, but the first one is the entrance, then we go back to the entrance.
Oh, so you broke up that one.
We put the, so
It's not the
timeline.
one with the, where the sun is shining through.
It's not, it's,
Because that one, it's hard to see anything. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to object, Judge.
May I have this marked as 80, so 79 can stay for ID.
Yes. And we can bring the jury back in, please. Would counsel stipulate, please?
Yes, Judge.
Yep.
May I inquire?
Yes.
Detective Kimball, before we broke, we were discussing the Starbucks surveillance footage. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And as the case officer on this particular investigation, have you had an opportunity to review that surveillance footage?
Yes, I have.
Judge, this is 80. I'm going to move it into evidence formally in front of the jury.
Thank you.
And I have no objection to that, what we're now showing.
Thank you. States 80 a full exhibit.
And Your Honor, for the record, States 80 contains 3 separate clips, and we're just going to play those in order. We're not gonna play clip 2, Judge? And we're playing clip 3 now. That concludes the third clip, Judge. Detective Kimball, you had a chance to review that surveillance footage before, correct?
Correct.
And that Starbucks is located in West Hartford?
Yes, on Albany Avenue.
In order to get to the area where Mr. Dulos was observed dumping trash, would you have to drive past that Starbucks?
Yes, you would.
Assuming you were coming from 4 Jefferson Crossing?
Yes, you would travel east past it, and then you would go out to where he was dumping trash.
You were asked questions on cross-examination about the divorce proceedings between Fotis Dulos and Jennifer Dulos. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
Did the defendant, during the course of the second interview, describe her feelings about the Dulos divorce proceedings?
Yes.
What did she say about that?
She described them as being a nightmare for her.
Did she indicate that it had been 2 years of torture?
Yes.
The defendant told you during the interview that Mr. Dulos did not tell her what to write in her timeline. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Now, we've seen Mr. Dulos' timeline, or at least the timeline that the defendant identified as Mr. Dulos' timeline, state 75. Was the Hartford trash dumping in his timeline?
It was not, no.
During the course of the first interview, the defendant used the words car wash. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Could you describe to the jury the context in which the defendant used the word car wash?
Myself and Detective Clabby were talking about if someone were to have committed a crime down in New Canaan, where they would go to clean up. And we were referring to 61 Sturbridge Hill to find out whether there was water at that house that was under construction. And that is when the defendant brought up, she first said, a car, and then she said, car wash.
During the June 2nd or June 6th interviews, did the defendant ever indicate to you that she had traveled in tandem with Mr. Dulos to a car wash on May 29th?
No, she did not.
If I could just have a moment, Judge.
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you.
No, I don't.
This up long. Than an advertisement. There are only a few points that I want to ask about that was just brought up on redirect. You were asked some questions about her reaction to indicating that she thought that Jennifer Dulos was still alive, and that's partially based on what she had been told by Mr. Dulos, correct?
We asked her what happened, she thought happened to Jennifer.
Yeah,
Yes.
you would ask that question. And, or Detective Clabby, sometimes it's difficult to tell who's asking what, right?
Correct.
Especially in that first interview, it's kind of blurry, the quality isn't great, right?
Correct.
Hopefully, the state police have, gotten better equipment since 2019, I hope.
First interview with the New Canaan site.
Well, that was the New Canaan police anyway, wasn't it?
Yes.
Their
Yes.
equipment.
Yes.
Okay. So, when she told you the details about why she thought that Miss Farber-Dulos was still alive, she went into some description about what the experts in the divorce case had written. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And she said that she never got to see the report, but others had told her that's what was in it, right?
That's correct.
And she did mention Mike Rose as one of those people, didn't she?
Yes, you did.
And you do know that Attorney Rose was Fotis Dulos' divorce attorney at that time, correct?
Again, I think we discussed it the other day. I was unaware that he was a divorce attorney. I knew that he was in contact with Fotis.
You knew he was one of his attorneys, you just didn't know what he was representing him on, right?
Correct.
You subsequently did learn he was one of the divorce attorneys in the divorce case, right?
Correct, yes.
I just wanted to get that clarified. So when she offered to help you, quote, dig holes, unquote, right? This is after Detective Clabby had suggested that we, meaning we, the police, believe she might have been in the bags you were throwing out. Isn't that the words that he had used?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just going to see if this, sort of refreshes your recollection. You asked questions about if you had to get rid of a body, or if you had to get rid of a body which was no longer in one piece, where would you go? And Michelle said, me, right, in that video?
Yes.
Right. And then you said, or where do you think Fotis might go?
Can we just clarify, are we referring to the first or the
First
second?
interview. And I'll note, I'm referring to the New Canaan version of the transcription. So if you need to follow along. And didn't she say, oh, God, I don't know. I mean, you're asking me something that, and then you said, because I unfortunately believe that's where we're at. That's the situation, and it's terribly sad. Isn't that when she said, well, why don't you look there, meaning at the house?
First of all, I do remember saying what I said.
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure what she followed up.
Do you remember, though, then saying, who's saying we're not looking there? Do you remember saying that to her in
Yes.
response to, why don't you look there?
Yes.
Okay. And then, didn't she then go on to say that she would never talk to him like, where would you bury a body if it's not our conversation? Didn't she say that to you?
Yes.
And you said that, and then you responded that that if she had any guesses basically on what you know about him, we're looking for Jennifer, and unfortunately, Jennifer may be, and she interrupted and says, I don't know, you said it's dead. And you go, what's that? You said that she's dead because you found the blood, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just leading that up to, isn't that when Mr. Clabby, Detective Clabby, said, there's enough to suggest that, but we believe she might have been in the bags you were throwing out. And then her reaction was, she started crying, went, and she put her face in her hands, right? Isn't that
She put her
portion?
face in her hands, yes.
So when she offered to dig holes, that was after that conversation, isn't it?
Yes.
But when you asked her what she thought, she told you what she had believed at the time based on what others had told her, right?
Yes.
And you did at least confirm that others did say those things, right? It was in writing about things about Jennifer Dulos that were at least in writing, right?
Just going to object, Judge. Calls for your side.
I'm not offering for the truth. I'm certainly not offering it for the truth. It's the fact that it was said, it was understood, and it was part of the reason for this conversation with her.
Additionally, Your Honor, I'd like to be heard on one additional matter at sidebar with respect to this.
Well, first, the court thinks it can address this objection without a sidebar. The question is, you became aware of basically the visitation study, and that other people, even though Michelle Troconis didn't see it, other people talked to her about the study. So the question is, did you become aware that other people talked to her about the study? And the objection is hearsay?
Well, the question was different, Judge, if I recall, and of course, the court's recollection controls, but I believe the question was whether or not he had confirmed that other people had said those things about Jennifer Dulos. And so that was the last question.
Thank you. Whether Detective Kimball had confirmed that other people said certain things about Jennifer Dulos and also conveyed those things to Michelle Troconis. That's the question.
Yes.
Well, did you become aware that other people essentially talked to Michelle Troconis about the study?
Right.
Well, that's offered for the truth, that other people talked to Michelle Troconis about the study. So since it's offered for the truth, it's hearsay, sustained.
She didn't give you the study document, the custody study herself, did she?
No.
Someone else gave you a copy at some point, correct?
Judge, objection, may we be heard at sidebar?
Well,
I think that calls for a yes or no question. I don't think it requires a side.
but it's probably the next question that's going to be a problem.
I'm not going to get into that next question. That was
Well,
going
the
to be-
question is, did you ever get a copy of the study?
Yes.
That's the next question.
I don't think he answered that. That's the only question I'm asking.
And the objection to that question would be
I'd like to state my objection at sidebar, Your Honor, if I may.
no. What's the objection? On the grounds that the code of evidence provides.
Well, Your Honor, there was a discovery order in this case, and I'm concerned that we're walking up to it, and that's why I wanted to discuss it at sidebar. With respect to the evidentiary grounds, its relevance.
Well, the court is not going to allow any content from that study to come into evidence. So did this officer get a copy? Yes or no? And that's as far as it goes.
Ask the question one more time, sir.
Did you get a copy of that study?
A copy was obtained. I personally did not get a copy.
With regard to the timeline, you were just asked some more questions about her timeline, right?
Yes?
She didn't give it to you, did she?
No?
She had given it to her attorney, isn't that right?
Correct.
And there was some mention just at the end here about a car wash. She had indicated that she gave it to her attorney when she met him the previous Wednesday. Isn't that right?
You're asking when she gave it to Attorney Bowman?
Right.
On what date?
Yeah.
I don't remember a specific date.
Well, you remember that she indicated she'd given it to him on their first time they had met, right?
Okay, yes.
You also know that was the day that, since it was brought up, that Mr. Dulos had washed a different car, correct?
That's correct.
At the car wash.
At Russell Speeders, in Avon, yes.
Now, you were asked some questions about what seemed strange by her answers. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
Now, you've ever lived in South America yourself?
No.
You don't know what's considered strange and how people react in Venezuela, do you?
No.
Do you know anything about how people would act or react to these kind of accusations if they had lived for a period of time in Argentina?
No.
Or for that matter, if they'd lived in Miami with family members and didn't know, had never been involved with law enforcement before?
correct. No, I don't know.
Did you find it strange that the state's attorney personally came in and sat down and participated in an interrogation
Objection,
of a
Judge.
suspect?
Objection, Judge. Relevance outside the scope.
He opened the door, and I am talking about what is strange or not strange.
Well, when the door is opened, a lot can come through. But the issue is whether it's relevant, whether it's confusing, whether it's unfairly prejudicial, whether it's a surprise, whether it's a waste of time, whether it is essentially needless presentation of cumulative evidence. Did you find it, the key to the door is not the word strange. So did you find it strange that Attorney Colangelo was there is not relevant. Just because the word is strange, that's not the key that opens every door. Sustained.
Well, again, in using Mr. McGinnis's word, did you find it strange that the state's attorney said he didn't think that Michelle knew anything?
Same, Judge.
Sustained.
Did you find it strange that Sergeant Ventresca said that she was the only person that ever picked up gum off a sidewalk when she never said that?
Just object, Judge. It's outside the scope.
Well, did you find it strange that Sergeant Ventresca said it's not relevant? Previously, there was a question concerning whether a certain question asked by Sergeant Ventresca was surprising. And the response was no. This question does not appear to this court to be relevant, sustained.
You were asked some general questions about what suspects do, how they react on various occasions. You recall those questions you were just asked?
Yes.
So do all suspects agree to meet with law enforcement and sit down with them?
No.
Do all suspects who have attorneys agree to come in and sit down and meet with law enforcement after they're charged?
No.
And Michelle never refused to talk to you with her attorney, did she?
I'm sorry. Whoops.
I'll rephrase the question. When she was with her attorney, she never refused and stopped answering questions, did she?
Each interview ended, but she didn't stop it before the natural ending. So,
In
yeah.
fact, yes, in other words, when you were done, that's when she was done, right?
We would ask her if she had any questions for us, and as long as there were none, it was complete.
And she then brought up Pavel's Tacoma, didn't she? When you asked if they have anything else, any other questions, she did bring up the Tacoma, even if it didn't come up in what she was doing at 80 Mountain Spring Road, right? She brought it up.
Yes, in interview one, yes.
Incidentally, when at one point in the second video, Attorney Bowman gets up and leaves the room for a minute, she started talking even without her lawyer, and you had to tell her to stop and wait till he gets back, right?
That's correct.
And in terms of what you often see based on the question of what you'd expect or not expect, when some people you question them, they appear confident, don't they?
Yes.
And sometimes people who are lying appear confident, right?
Yes.
But sometimes people who are telling the truth are confident as well, right? Appearing so.
Yes.
And when you look someone in the eye, you can't tell if they're lying or not just by looking at their eyes, right?
Object, Judge. Relevance outside the scope.
Well, the area is interrogation in order to determine the truth. The question here is, you cannot determine the truth, this is the question, by looking in someone's eyes. So the court's going to allow the question.
Counselor, you just re-ask it, please.
Re-ask it?
Yes, please.
You can't tell whether somebody's the truth by just looking at their eyes, right?
So there are indicators, but it's not like a lie detector.
Right. And you just can't tell by the tone of their voice whether they're telling the truth or not, right?
I would give the same answer.
And sometimes people give you different accounts of an event, right?
Yes,
And sometimes that's evidence that they're lying, right?
yes,
And sometimes when they're giving you different accounts, they're mistaken, right?
yes,
Sometimes, in fact, during these videos, you've admitted you were mistaken about certain things you were saying, correct? Certain facts.
correct.
You later realized that they were incorrect. You had either been told something that was incorrect, right?
Yeah, yes,
Or you had interpreted something or remembered something incorrect, right?
yes,
In fact, even Mr. McGinnis pointed out, when you look at Weather Underground, it's kind of a difficult site to navigate sometimes, isn't it?
yes.
And by the way, you had, before June 2nd, 2019, you had never met Michelle Troconis before, right?
That's correct.
So you didn't know what she was like on a day-to-day basis before that, right?
That's correct.
Or how she reacted to any other situation, right?
Correct.
By the way, towards the end there, we just watched some of the Starbucks video, correct?
Yes,
Now, on May 24th, correct me if I'm wrong, the hair that you see on Mr. Dulos' head in the Starbucks video is about the length of your hair, as it is right now, right?
I would say it's a little shorter, but they're both short.
But it wasn't a shaved head like we see Sergeant Ventresca's head, right?
No, not a shape.
His head, it looks like, it's shiny, waxed, whatever, bowling ball, right? I hope he's not listening.
Those are your words, Counselor.
Yes, my words. But you want me to rephrase the question?
He has a shaved head.
He has a shaved head where there's no sign of hair at all, right?
Yes,
And you do see some hair on Mr. Dulos' head in the Starbucks video on the evening of May 24th, 2019, right?
yes.
And I just have a couple more questions. I'm going to, before I stop, I'm going to ask my colleague whether I missed anything. But when you talked about Albany Avenue and Route 44, where the Starbucks is, right?
Okay.
The travel time from that location where the Starbucks is at Bishop's Corner in West Hartford to where the cameras were observing the vehicle was just about 4 minutes, correct? Further down towards Hartford, right?
I don't know what the travel time was. I don't know that that's not accurate.
Okay. Well, again, the jury has seen cameras, video, and have looked at the times from different perspectives, but I'm saying that you're not disagreeing with me that it's 4 minutes further down the road.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Can I just have a moment? I was reminded one other point now. You were asked a couple of questions just now about you seeing the Raptor turning down a side street and going someplace before it returns to Albany Avenue, correct?
Correct.
But you're aware there were video cameras on Homestead Avenue, right?
I don't think I knew that there were any on Homestead.
Okay. Were you aware that there were videos that were played here that showed the Tacoma going at different points and turning corners and coming back towards Albany Avenue?
Object to the form of the question, Judge.
Well, again, The witnesses are sequestered, which means the witnesses should not have discussed their testimony with any other witness. So the question is, were you aware that another witness saw a video of recordings taken from a building on Homestead Avenue?
Judge, if I may also, I think it mischaracterizes the evidence as well.
Well, first of all, there's a sequestration order in effect, so the court is not going to allow that question.
I don't believe I mentioned any other witness. I mentioned the fact that videos, not what people saw in videos.
Well, the court thought it heard the question as another witness testified about a video on Homestead Avenue. Were you aware of that?
Then if I said that, I misspoke, so let me withdraw that and I'll ask a different way. You're aware that video cameras from buildings along that other route were obtained by the state police in the course of this investigation, those off of Albany Avenue, right?
Buildings from along Homestead.
Right, and Chrysalis Center and a few other gas station surveillance video, you're aware of that, right?
Yes.
Judge, I'm just going to object at this point. I think it mischaracterizes the evidence.
Well, what is the mischaracterization, Attorney McGinnis?
Your Honor, it's state's understanding that there is only one video off of Albany Avenue when it turns. Counsel is suggesting that there are multiple videos, and so that's the mischaracterization.
Thank you.
There were multiple shown to the jury, so I'm using that fact that the state presented. If they don't remember it, I believe I have a good faith reason to ask that
rather
question.
than, in order not to generate confusion, if the witness testifies that, yes, this witness is aware that there were video recordings from a camera on Homestead Avenue and from cameras at other places, that question can be asked.
All right. Were you aware, sir, that video cameras from other locations that were off Albany Avenue, that is, that the alleged travel of the vehicle were also obtained?
I'm just going to object, Your Honor. That's a different question.
Well, if it is a different question, counsel has abandoned his previous question.
Very well, Judge.
I'm aware that video was sought from Chrysalis Center, which is not C4 video.
Right, I'm saying other than C4 video. There was other cameras that were reviewed and or seized.
That is correct.
Okay. And you're also aware that in that entire route, investigators checked dumpsters and other trash receptacles along that block.
That's correct.
There was no other video that was obtained that showed any other stops other than at a stoplight, correct?
I don't know that.
You don't know that.
I don't know that.
You also know that there were efforts to search dumpsters or garbage pails along Milford and Homestead Avenue.
Yes.
There, cadaver dogs were brought in to smell around.
Yes.
There were no other hits or trash or anything recovered in any other place, correct?
I don't know what hits, but there was no other evidence recovered along that route, no.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
You were asked by Attorney Schoenhorn on recross examination about how different suspects can react different ways. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
You were asked a series of questions that began with sometimes. Do you recall that line of
Yes.
questioning? Isn't it true that sometimes suspects think they can talk their way out of something and speak with the police?
Absolutely, yes.
And isn't it true that sometimes suspects try to lie for people they care about?
These are all leading questions, Your Honor, and if he wants to ask general questions, yes, but these are, isn't it true that is a leading question?
Well,
And argumentative.
well, the court does not see the questions as argumentative. What the court hears this area of questioning to be is almost a primer on or anecdotal evidence of police interrogations. Now, that door was opened, overruled.
Sometimes suspects will lie to protect people they care about, is that correct?
That is correct.
You were asked whether or not you can tell the truth by looking into someone's eyes. Do you recall that question on recross examination?
I do, sir.
And I believe you indicated that you cannot tell just by looking in someone's eyes,
That's correct.
And that's why the state police continued to conduct an investigation into the defendant's claims even after June 6th, correct?
Yes, correct.
And in fact, in August, you asked the defendant, or Detective Clavy asked the defendant point blank, whether or not she had been 100% truthful during her first two interviews, correct?
Objection outside the scope of recross. I didn't bring up anything about August 13th, and it's clearly leading now, and that has not yet come in. What happens on August 13th will be revealed when the videos are played.
Well, the question has to do with whether or not at a later date the defendant admitted or there was an indication that the defendant was not 100% truthful. If the date was left out, the question would still be admissible. Did the defendant at any time indicate that she was not 100% truthful? So the fact that there was mentioned August 13th, in this court view, doesn't render the question inadmissible.
Yeah, but I would also note that would be a mischaracterization, the way this, of what she actually said, and we could get into it, but that's not right now being played, so that's, it's not how she characterized it.
Respectfully, counsel went into numerous recross examination about what sometimes people do. He cross-examined the detective, essentially trying to suggest that Ms. Troconis was being truthful and the detective wouldn't know any better. And so I'm exploring that avenue which he opened the door to at this point.
Again, the question, because perhaps the question itself was not quoted word for word, counsel is objecting as a mischaracterization. The court does not remember the word for word exchange. But the court does recall in a subsequent interview that the term 100% truthful was used. The court does not recall the word for word exchange. The court is not going to foreclose the question, but if there's an objection as to mischaracterization, the court at this time would not be able to determine that it was or was not mischaracterized. But the court's not foreclosing the question, but the court is not able at this point to determine whether it's a mischaracterization.
Was the defendant asked by either you or Detective Clavy whether or not she was ready to admit that she had not been 100% truthful in her first two interviews?
Yes.
And what was her answer?
She indicated she had not been 100% truthful.
Nothing further.
And that was after you told her you had proof that Fotis Dulos could not have been home that morning, correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
And have you concluded with Detective Kimball, Attorney McGinnis?
Yes, Judge.
Detective Kimball, you may step down. Sure.
We'll be recalling the detective. Judge, we do have another witness available. May I just have a moment with Attorney Schoenhorn?
Yes.
Just ask Sergeant Newton to step out for just a moment if we could. Judge, we have a very, well, hopefully a very short witness. Is Trooper Szynski up?
Oh. But
And I'll just indicate, Your Honor, Sergeant Newton, I think, is going to be a little lengthier, so I don't know that it makes sense to start him today, but we do have a shorter witness.
It probably makes more sense for Flo to take the shorter witness.
I could do that, Your Honor. I'll jump in on Trooper Suzanne Sedensky. If I may just have a moment. If I may have a moment with counsel, Your Honor.
Yes.
If I may just have something marked, Your Honor, while I'm.
Yes.
Thank you. If I may, Your Honor, the short witness was just downstairs.
Thank you.
Your Honor, Trooper Sedensky is here. If I could ask her to take the stand, please. Thank you.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear, solemnly and sincerely affirm, as the case may be, that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
You can lower your hand. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Susanna Shadensky, SusannaSedensky.
And your affiliation, please.
Connecticut State Police.
Thank you.
And you may be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Trooper. How are you?
Good, thank you.
How long have you worked for the Connecticut State Police?
This is my 10th year.
Okay. What is your current rank and assignment?
I'm a detective with the State Police Cybercrime Unit.
What is the State Police Cybercrime Unit?
So the Cybercrime Unit, we were established in 2018, and we basically deal with a lot of digital forensics, video downloads, computer analysis, phone downloads. We also do business email compromise and other cyber-related investigations.
Could you briefly explain to the jury some of your training and experience as a Connecticut State Trooper, please?
So I started with the State Police in 2014. Prior to the State Police, I worked 12 years as a computer consultant. And when the Cybercrime Unit was established in 2018, I was selected as one of the investigators in the unit due to my computer knowledge and background.
Were you in that unit in June of 2019?
Yes, I was.
Drawing your attention to that June of 2019, did you have occasion to respond to 77 Mountain Spring Road in Farmington?
Yes, I did.
What type of property is 77 Mountain Spring Road?
It's a residential, it's a house.
Why did you respond there?
The Leicester District Major Crimes Unit was conducting an investigation, and they required our assistance as a cybercrime unit to download video footage from the residence.
Did you meet with the homeowners there?
Yes, I did.
Did you have an opportunity to review their surveillance equipment?
Yes, standard. When we go and download videos, the first thing that we do is basically we look at the unit to see who is the manufacturer, how it functions, and we take notes of it.
Was there a particular camera or angle that you were interested in?
Yes, we were requested to download the footage that was facing the residence driveway, and it was also facing the road, Mountain Spring Road.
When you went to the property at 77 Mountain Spring Road, did they have a camera angle that covered the road?
Yes, they did.
Were you able to view that on their camera system?
Yes, we were.
Was there a specific time or, well, withdraw that. Was there a specific day you were requested to download?
Yes, we were asked to download from May 19th, May 19th through May 26th of 2019.
I'm sorry, was that May 19th until when?
May 26th.
Okay.
That's in real time.
That's the real time. You mentioned real time. What time was displayed on the camera system? Was it accurate?
No, the camera system was actually 1 day and 10 minutes ahead of the real time.
How did you determine that?
What we do usually is we have a department-issued cellular phone, and we compare the time on the phone that's given by the provider to the actual data on the camera system.
Let me ask you this. When you were there at 77 Mountain Spring Road and you were downloading the video, were you able to actually look at the camera system as it is being utilized in real time at that moment?
That is correct. Most camera systems do show a date and a timestamp on the screen. There's a monitor attached. The camera system almost looks like a video recorder system with a monitor attached, and the monitor usually shows us the different cameras that are connected to the system, and it shows a date and a time of the system and the footage being recorded.
Now, with respect to two specific days, I know you said you downloaded did you download that whole week?
That is correct, we did.
Okay. Specifically with May 23rd, 2019, with the time difference, what would that show up on the camera system as?
May 23rd would show May 24th, and then an added 10 minutes to the time.
And by time system, is that conveyed on the actual video screen?
Yes.
And May 24th, what time would that, in date, would that show on the actual screen?
If it's May 24th in real time, then it would be May 25th plus added 10 minutes to an actual time.
Now, after you saw that and conferred the time, did you download that video?
That is correct. So we grabbed video footage from May 20th through May 27th, which was the DVR's time.
How long did it take you to download that video?
It took us several hours. We started probably around like 5:30 in the afternoon, and it took us, I don't think we got out before like midnight.
And that was at the residence?
Yes.
Now, what did you do after you obtained the video?
After the video was obtained, I took the footage to the cybercrime unit, which is over at State Police Headquarters in Middletown, and I secured it we have a secure storage location, and that's why I locked it in.
Okay. Did you save a copy as well?
Yes, I did.
With respect to States 81, I believe there's no objection? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Just briefly, if I can,
Has State 81 been offered?
I believe yes, Your Honor, I would offer it. I believe there's no objection if it could be moved into a full exhibit at this time.
Thank you. States 81 admitted as full.
Thank you. Just if you could take a look at the screen either in front of you or behind you. Do you recognize what's depicted on the screen?
Yes, that's correct. So that's depicting that the video footage from Channel 4, which was the actual, the driveway was named as Channel 4 on the system. The 2019 0524 is actually the month and the date. 0800 or 0800 is the actual time.
Okay. And with respect to the dates and times reflected on States 81, what does it start with again?
So it starts at 2019, May 24th at midnight.
Okay. And that if it is a day and 10 minutes ahead of time, what is that in real time?
That's in real time. If that's the DVR time, that should be May 23rd, 10 minutes ahead, 23:50.
And what does it go to?
It goes all the way until May 25th at 2300 hours, which is 11 p.m.
Okay. And real time, that would be?
That would be May 24th, May 24th at 10:50 p.m.
And the player on the bottom, what is this?
So each video recording system, or some of them, they come with their own player, which is the most efficient way, the most clearest way to actually look at the video. So when we are saving the video footage from a DVR, we actually save the player program with it at the same time.
So Exhibit 81 contains essentially 2 days worth of the 7 days that you downloaded, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will leave it at that. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I won't stand at their podium, excuse me. That's theirs. So that I want to be clear, you actually have downloaded on that disk an entire week's worth of video, is that right?
That is correct.
And unlike some video, this is not a motion-activated video, was it?
This was a motion-activated video.
This was motion-activated? Oh. So it only went on when it caught vehicles or movement in the vision?
That is correct.
That is within the camera?
Yes,
Okay. You said that the time embedded in it was off by a day and 10 minutes, correct?
That is correct.
And you've explained that, so I'm not going to have you do the math again. But each clip that's on that exhibit is how long, on Exhibit 81?
I would have to look at the clip again in order to, I don't remember how long the clips were.
All right, but however many there are, each one is a clip until it turned on, until it turned off again, correct?
So sometimes it's the system itself that will determine, so we just give it the time frame that we would like to download, the clips in between. And depending on the system, on the DVR system, it will actually cut up the video footage into chunks on its own. So we don't really have a control over that. We were not downloading it. I believe it may have been an hour increments. That's what the system did it on its own.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. So each of those files that we just saw up on the screen is approximately 1 hour or some less?
I believe it's approximately 1 hour, but the DVR system determines that.
Okay, all right. And you said that just to download it took about 5 or more hours.
Probably, yes. Yeah, it's about,
And the person who showed you the video system, the name of the people was Manafort, correct?
that is correct.
Those
I
are the-
believe we met with Mrs. Manafort.
Mrs.
that night.
Manafort.
Yes,
The owner, she was one of the owners of 77 Mountain Spring Road, right?
yes.
And does the system, do you need to use the proprietary player in order to play those clips?
That's the best way of doing it in order to get the best reliable video footage so it doesn't skip, the image is not distorted, so we get the best quality.
So if the date in the video says May 25, we should really be thinking it's a day earlier, May 24th.
That is correct.
Thank you, I have no further questions.
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zensky, you can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would that conclude the state's witnesses for today?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we conclude today's session. Tomorrow, do we begin with Sergeant Butin?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we will begin the session at 10 o'clock. State will continue its presentation, calling Sergeant Butin. Please do not discuss the case or view any media, read any media about the case. Have a good evening.
All rise. This honorable Superior Court now stands adjourned until tomorrow at 10.